Guys, finally my reunion after, I think 2019 was the last time na we had a conversation. Of course, back then, this was for GMA Network with former Senator Sonny Trillanes, also a fellow academic of mine. Both of us now teach in UP, so also a colleague. In many ways, thank you so much, Senator Sonny Trillanes, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Richard, for inviting me again dito sa show mo.
Okay, bago tayo pumunta sa mga seryosong issue, bago pag-usapan ng mga, I don't know, fentanyl and polvoron and all of that. Parang, sir, bumata kayo lalo ngayon.
Ha?
Parang lahat bumabata ngayon.
Nawala ning major stressor nung natapos yung term ni Duterte. So siguro.
Kasi kahit si Senator De Lima rin kausap ko, sabi ko, Senator De Lima, parang fresh dying. I mean, of course, her case is a bit extreme, no?
Yeah,
Pero
yeah.
pansin ko, kahit yung mga iba off the record ko na meet, parang bumata ka rin. Sabi ko, alam natin bakit. So, speaking of, you know, man of the hour, or more like ex-president, Rodrigo Duterte, before we go to the ICC issue and some of the issues that you have been very vocal about, bago tayong awayin nila Harry Roque and the rest, let's go back. Remember, so back in 2019, nag-usap tayo. You told us very interesting things on the record about Digong was considering you as a running mate even at some point. I mean, parang he was sending feelers to you even at some point. Can you tell us a little bit, like, what's your context of getting to know Digong, not like friendly basis, pero ano yung mga first major encounters mo sa kanya before he became the president?
Okay.
Recap lang dun sa mga hindi nanood na interview natin before. Yeah.
I think the first time ko siya na-meet personally was nung 2013 elections. Ang pagkakilala naman ng mga national politicians kay Duterte at that time is ano lang, no? Parang general Dirty Harry reputation. Pero hindi niyo naman ano, no? Hindi yung to the extent na alam mong meron siyang death squad na talagang pinapapatay. It's just parang before that, ganyan din reputation ni President Erap when he was mayor of San Juan, ganyan din reputation ni Fred Lim nung siya mayor ng Manila. General, ganon. Then, nung 2016 elections, parating, that was 2015, a common friend namin arranged a meeting, between Duterte and myself dito sa Ortigas. Kaya mali yung fake news yung sinasabi that I went to Davao to apply to be his vice president. Anyway, yung grupo kasi namin, yung Magdalo, wanted to really get to know no, yung mga prospective candidates for 2016. So that's Mar Rojas, Senator Grace Poe, si Binay, of course. So ganon. Ito si Duterte, unknown ano siya entity, no? Except for the myth. So kailangan
Dark
namin
horse, medyo dark horse.
before we would throw kumaga our support to sa isang kandidato, kailangan namin alamin. Hence that meeting, no? Kaso dun sa nag-meeting kami, right from kumaga from the start ng conversation, sinabi niya na hindi siya tatakbo, no? This was around April of 2015. Now, remember, this guy kept on denying that he will that he will run, so dinideny niya until yun na nga December siya. So nung time na nag-usap kami, he told me upfront na hindi siya tatakbo. So hindi talaga totoo that nag-apply ako for hindi nga siya kandidato. Anyway, I took advantage of that meeting just to get insights from the man, no? Kung ano ba talaga to, sinasabi na magaling, Then tinanong ko, ano bang mga pananaw nyo? Ano mga solusyon nyo sa mga problema ng bayan? Pero alam mo, dun sa 1 hour and a half na meeting namin yun, ni isang segundo ron, hindi niya dinivote sa pagbigay ng mga solusyon sa problema ng bayan. Ang mga kwento lang niya, mga kabastusan, no? Mga macho war stories, mga pinatay niya, mga ganon. He thought,
Panther, yeah.
yeah, akala niya ma-impress ako sa kanya being a former soldier, nagpapaka macho siya. So yung mga war stories din niya. Kaso, so after that meeting, talagang negative yung impression ko sa kanya because the meeting was intended for us to know the man, titignan namin kung ano to. So I went back to my group, sabi ko, in the first place, hindi raw siya kandidato, pero ang assessment ko is may problema to sa pag-iisip. Okay? That's being honest kasi normally, kung hitman ka, yung mindset mo, di ba? You kill people, but you don't really brag about
Subtle
it.
ka, you subtle, yeah.
Oo, ito hindi. Talagang pinagmamalaki niya. So may problema ito on so many levels. So sabi ko nga, ang saving grace hindi raw siya tatakbo. So when this guy finally declared to run for president, yung buong conversation namin na yun that happened months before, talagang came flooding back in. Na tipong, teka muna, hindi to pwede maging presidente ng Pilipinas. Di ba? May problema ito. So yun na ngayon. It became our advocacy to really prevent him from being president. But obviously, we failed at that. You
But of
know.
course, your first attempt at trying to prevent him from becoming the president is yung bank account issue, di ba? At
Yes.
eventually, I'm not blaming you, pero nadama yung buong ABS-CBN, right? I think that's one of the related ba yan?
No,
Yung
no,
mga
no, no.
expose mo, hindi siya related.
Hindi siya relate. Ganito, no? Si Duterte, magaling siya mag-mask. Maglalabas siya ng mga pretext to cover the real agenda in anything. I-justify niya yung pagpatay sa mga tao, i-justify niya yung mag-ship niya sa China. Marami siyang mga pretext. Ngayon yung pag-shutdown sa ABS, ang sinasabi niya was dahil naglabas daw ako ng negative ad, ABS-CBN daw yung naglabas. GMA7 naglabas din ako ng negative ad eh.
Yeah, alam ko multiple
Parehas
channels.
yun eh. Ano lang, mga palusot lang niya yan. But he really wanted to get ABS-CBN. Sinake down lang niya para the offer will come. Kaso hindi binigay ng Lopez family eh. Nung sinake down, tapos nag-offer sila, hindi tinanggap. No? Kaya tinuluyan. Sinat down.
And
Anyway, yun lang yun.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, I just wanted to for the purpose of
Yeah.
clarity, di ba, on that
Yeah.
issue. Now, obviously, hindi yun yung first time na you were pushing back against him. Of course, throughout his presidency,
Yes.
at some point, mukhang na sobrang pikon niya sa'yo.
Mm.
Ano yung nangyari? Nawala daw nila yung documents mo. Like, yung na-pardon ka by
Yeah.
Pinoy. How, like,
Mm.
how, I mean, was it as crazy as you thought you would be? Or was it just, I mean, you were already telling na may impression ka na, you were
Mm.
expecting that it will go that bad, diba? And the whole thing in the Senate, kind of
Yeah.
parang hindi namin alam kung susugurin yung Senado or hindi. Can you tell us a little bit about that episode also, Senator?
Okay, before it got to that point, una muna nag-attempt siya na ipapatay ako, no? And inutusan niya si mismo si Las Cañas who by some twist of events naging testigo, no? So hindi natuloy yung assassination plot. Then nag-attempt sila to implicate me sa isang murder sa loob ng Bilibid. Kaso some of the generals sa PNP who happens to be PME graduates as well, hindi nila pinatulan. Sabi nila hindi ano yan, it will not hold. So hindi they wanted a similar thing as yung kay Senator De Lima sa akin, no? Kaso so hindi natuloy yon. Ngayon naghanap sila ng iba pang pwedeng ikaso sa akin. So wala kasi mahanap. So itong si Kalida came up with this ano to brilliantly stupid idea
Surreal.
na inalify yung ko amnesty dahil nawala yung document daw. Hindi naman nawala no kahit na it was covered by the media and everything. So gano'n na nangyari kasi wala nang way. No? And the declaration itself was very specific. I am ordering the AFP and PNP to arrest Mr. Trillanes, gano'n. Pero to his dismay, hindi siya sinunod ng AFP kaya siya nagmaktol. He was advised na if he would do that, hindi madi-demoralize yung ranks.
Um,
Yun.
so, Senator, I mean, this is without a prejudice, but my question here is, yung pagiging ex-military mo, and of course your father, a lot of them come from very honored ranks in the armed forces of the Philippines. Did you think that that was giving you some sort of protection, or that gives you an I'm not questioning your courage. I'm just saying, didn't that give you extra courage or a sense na may konting hollow around you?
Siguro may background as a soldier gave me that yung parang um,
Mental
confidence to,
resilience. Yeah.
yeah, to confront yung mga ganyang klaseng kaaway. And siguro yung connection nga sa AFP, sa PMA, yun din naman in a way ang kumbaga sumalag dun sa mga ilang attempts ni Duterte, kasi mga PMAs din na nagsasabi sa kanya na wag mong gawin ito, ganyan. Kaya nga siya na-frustrate na tipong he was demonizing me, he was belittling kung ano man yung ginawa namin sa OCO din, etc. Tapos sinusumbat pa niya yung pag-increase ng salary, pero still they did not turn against me, no? But yun lang kasi, no, dahil nakikita naman nung AFP officer corps kung ano yung tama at mali, and obviously ginagawa niya mas mali. Yun.
That's a very important point kasi para sa akin, dalawang institution na letter M, tawag ko MNM. I think the media and the military during Duterte played a very, very important role. I mean, kudos to General Anyo, General Lorenzana, Secretary Lorenzana. I think mahalaga, for instance, yung meeting nila with Lenny, di ba? Noong
Yes.
2017 when Digong was calling for all-out martial law. Nag-no sila. I mean, multiple times
Yeah.
Digong was trying to bring in the military into drug war. So, the reason I'm saying this is because marami tayong mga kaibigan ng progressives or people na generally skeptical sa military. Alam mo naman yan na Senator
Yeah.
Trillanes. So, I always remind them, I said, hindi perfecto yung Armed Forces of the Philippines. I'm sure like any military can raise issues. But do not forget, they were the last guardians in some ways of the Philippine democracy. Kasi kung tinignan mo, Senator Trillanes, many people far less talented or far less aggressive than Duterte were able to completely overturn their system. I mean, the latest one is this millennial dictators na El Salvador, si Bukele, di ba? So, I think if the military stands its ground, it's very important for the protection of democracy. Kaya nga, I like talking to you because you also have that kind of connection
Yeah.
to the military. And I'll be honest, during that time, I also had constant conversation with the folks in the military, with Secretary Lorenzana, among others, because of my work sa West Philippine Sea, which we'll discuss later on. Now, before tayo pupunta dito sa issue ng ICC, I want to ask, did you expect na eventually Duterte will be forced to finish his 6-year term? Kasi 'di ba, yun yung anomaly kay Digong. If we describe him as a dictator, he's an interesting case of a dictator who actually had to eventually step down after a single term in office. And interestingly, even failed to engineer the succession because the daughter was in a very good position based on all surveys that we had. Can you tell me a little bit about etong end of the Duterte presidency and the failed engineering of the succession for his daughter to come in? Of course, she's still there as a vice president, but ibang usapan yan. I mean, I could imagine. Can you tell me a little bit about your reading of that episode, and also what was going through your mind? Because for a fact, alam ko maraming traumatized nung time na yan eh. Yung tipong, my goodness, if hindi manalo si Digong, baka manalo si Marcos, manalo si Sara. I mean, I remember very well many people were having a hard time coming to terms with things. At the same time, ako naman sinasabi ko, well, at least he's not going beyond 6 years. Can you tell me your take on that? Yeah.
Okay. Well, at the onset, si Duterte wanted to stay in power beyond the 6-year term. Okay, nag-attempt siya, flinote niya yung RevGov, di ba? Yung revolutionary government. Nag-attempt siya ng charter change, di ba? Itong charter change, ang gusto niya mangyari, yung transition, yung transitory provisions that the executive will have legislative and judicial power similar to what the Cory Aquino had.
Revolutionary government, essentially. Yeah,
Oo.
essentially. Revolutionary president. Yeah.
Pero ito through chacha, no? Yung gagawin niya, no? Kaso hindi nga umubra. So ginawa niya lahat. Nag-attempt siya mag-declare ng martial law initially. Sa Mindanao, gusto niya expand yun. Naghahanap siya ng pretext na anything just to justify that. Hindi nangyari, no? And the thing about, na-mention mo, related din doon sa kanina sinabi mo na yun. He went around camps, hinihikayat niya, sumama kayo sa war on drugs para nga magkakasabwat na tayo pag sumama kayo. No? Ang what
Blood
he
pact.
failed
I think blood
Yes.
pact ang term dyan, di
Oh.
ba?
What he failed to understand was kailangan nung kahit maraming mga sundalo na maka-Duterte pero hindi sila makakasunod because of the chain of command. Ang kuwan and we were engaging with sila Secretary Lorenzana at that time. Nag-aano sila, nagtipong kailangan nila ng black and white order. You must command. Pag sinabihan mo ng utos yung chief of staff, ibababa yun. Kaso Duterte, the coward and the wais, ayaw niyang magbigay ng command kasi may liability siya. So gusto niya yung mga pahapyaw and kayo na, you will take the initiative. Hindi ganun yun. No? Kaya walang sumunod. And I remember nung kausap ko to si Senator Marco Rubio about cutting yung aid sa sa military and sa PNP. Sabi niya yung sa PNP done deal na yun kasi talagang they became instruments of the EJ case. Pero sa military tinatanong niya ako, should I do the same to the AFP? Kasi that time chairman siya ng Appropriations Committee
Sa Senate.
sa US Senate. Sabi ko hindi kasi hindi naman sumama eh. Hindi naman sumama. Tsaka naman kailangan ng AFP nung support pa rin ng US kasi maraming mga security threats na ina-address. So that saved the day for the AFP yung hindi nila pagsama. And again, credit kila Secretary Lorenzana, kila
Top brass. Yeah.
General Anyo and the rest, General Galvez, lahat 'yon.
General Alves, exactly, exactly.
So
Hmm.
hindi sila sumunod, no? Alam nila pa rin yung And ngayon, hindi rin sila implicated sa ICC. Had they done so, may tama rin sila dapat.
And
So
also,
si Duterte,
right.
yeah.
No,
So ginawa niya talaga ito ni Duterte lahat, inexhaust niya lahat. Pero alam mo, one thing also na nag-save siguro sa Pilipinas and silver lining to, no? Kasi talagang tragedy yung COVID, yung pandemic for everyone. Because of the pandemic, nawalan siya ng 2 years si Duterte sa pag-isip ng gagawin niya. And by the time we emerge from the pandemic, mag-election fever na. And he didn't have any choice but to go to Plan C, which was the elections. Plano niya sana si Bongo, kaso hindi talaga marketable, no?
ano yun, parang
Ah,
Vladimir Putin, Medvedev style, yung ginawa sa
parang
Russia.
ganon.
Kasi idol
Parang
niya si
ganon.
Putin eh. So I won't be surprised. Yun yung
Yun na
temporary
yun.
ako
Oh.
president, pero ako pa rin yung president as he is huge
Parang
not.
remote control lang itong isa. Kaso, hindi nga marketable. No matter how hard they tried, hindi talaga malunok nung Pilipino yung prospects of a Bongo as president. No? Kaya ito namang Sara, just defiant ito as a daughter, makakontra lang sa tatay niya, hindi niya sinunod. No? Ngayon, nare-realize nila yung blunder nila. But it's too late. Tapos na. So, ang nangyari, nanalo si President Marcos by some uh, unexpected turn of
Turn
events.
of, very auspicious turn of events for
Auspicious,
him.
yeah.
Kasi barely number 2, 3 lang siya sa, I know there was a
Oh,
time si Isko pa nga yata mas mataas pa sa kanya or almost
yes. Oh,
statistically tied sila with Isko. So for someone to go from 13-15% to
yeah.
60%, that's quite a
Yes.
jump. And I'm saying
Yeah.
this from solid north right now, just to
Yeah.
be,
Oh,
yeah. So, but I want to rewind back a little bit dito sa issue ng military because I think this has not been covered enough by,
yeah.
let's be honest. I think media, progressive people, there's always this kind of iffiness with the military. Pero ako kasi because of my nature of my work, I'm very comfortable talking about military and giving them credit. In fact, isa sa op-eds ko sa New York Times was the title is Not Duterte's Army. Because my
Mm.
contention always, Senator Trillanes, was that uh, Duterte never achieved yung tinatawag na subjective control. I mean, we
Mm.
can have some debates about whether totally intact yung professionalization. Unfortunately, some politicization happened, but I don't think he ever managed to fully co-opt the top brass. Can you tell me a little bit what's your reading on that? Kasi if I just stop with our analysis kanina, parang labas yan is Duterte was just too incompetent or not courageous enough to go to its logical limit. But that's just
Yeah.
the supply side. Eh. The other side is also, I don't think the top brass would have been also so open to what happened under Marcos Sr., di ba? When he totally politicized and subjectively controlled the military. Can you tell me a little bit about the other side also? Kasi agree ako dun sa Duterte side. It takes
Yeah.
competence to be dictator.
Yeah.
He was just not competent enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one. And the other, yung sinabi mong, he's not courageous enough to co-opt the military. Ano? Ang nakita ko, ano siya eh, dito sa panahon kasi ni Pinoy na ano na, and during the latter part of the GMA regime, nagkaroon ng mga maaayos na chief of staff eh, no? Sila General Llano, General Ibrado. So nag-spill over yan nung panahon na ni Pinoy. Generally na professionalize yung ranks. Wala yung mga esperon types na talagang ano na nagagawa ng hindi maayos just to display their misplaced
This is the
loyalty.
Bayanihan General Bautista time
General Bautista
professionalization,
type.
right?
So talagang
Exactly. Yeah,
ito
just to
yung
give
mga
credit, right?
snappy.
Yeah.
Oo, ito yung mga snappy na tinatawag. Ngayon naka ano sila. Yan si Eriberi, General Eriberi, then sina ano na, General Anyo, no? Ganon yang nangyari na profession. But still, kung matibay-tibay yung dibdib ni Duterte, inupo niya yung mga yan, sasabihin niya, ito yung situation, ganyan, ganyan. They would have followed him. Believe me, they would have followed him. Ang problema ni Duterte was, nung pagpumasok kasi siya, nagkaroon siya ng modus vivendi with the RAs with the communist movement. Kaya nag-power sharing sila, di ba? Merong 3
Tatlo,
cabinet
yeah, yeah.
secretaries. So, ang problema niya noon, hindi niya mape-present yung communist bogey as a pretext sa AFP. Kasi ando doon sa kanya, siya mismo nag-appoint eh.
So
So, di
nag-own
ba?
goal siya. Nag-own goal siya in a way.
Oo. Kaya ngayon, hindi niya ngayon malabas yun. Alam niyo sa military, yung communist bogey ando doon yun kasi ano eh, yung indoctrination talagang parang virus yan eh. Kita mo, na-realize lang nila yan during the end na tipong nung inihikayat niya yung AFP na patayin yung mga addicts, hindi sumusunod. Pero nung eventually sinabi niya, o patayin niyo to, mga NPA to, ginawa. Pero it was too late. Wala na. Papunta na talaga sa 2022 elections at that time. Pero ganun yan. Had he sat down with them, kung tinibayan niya yung loob niya, present niya, sasama yon. Kung RevGov man, RevGov, Marcelo sasama yon. But yun nga, he was not competent enough, he cannot present a plan, and he was not courageous enough
Decisive
to
enough.
confront them.
I mean that's one of
Yun.
the paradoxes of Digong, no? Like everyone voted
Yeah.
for him because he was supposed to be the decisive guy. And yet, for some of us who bother to follow him or write on him constantly, parang ang daming moments of indecision. I mean, just look at the response to pandemic. Ay, okay lang yan. At hindi okay yan. Over lockdown. I mean, you could see very arbitrary. Sabog. I mean,
Yeah.
just to be honest about
Yeah.
it, to use the term, I think that's the correct term. But last point on this one, again,
Yeah.
Senator Trias, I'm talking about this because I feel, especially in our circles, no, hindi masyadong inappreciate yung role ng military. I want to keep on coming back to this, and I think you're the perfect person to talk to, diba?
Mhm.
What about the role of the US? Don't you think that Duterte also always was worried na hindi ko maano to kasi may US element? And I don't mean it in a necessarily negative way. I mean in terms of institutional linkages, indoctrination. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
How important was the US element? And I'm asking you because you constantly dealt with Marco Rubio and all of the security elite in America. Yeah.
Well, it was very important. And tama yung ano mo, no? Ando doon at the back of Duterte's mind is if he would push too far, baka mag-backfire sa kanya. But ano to, sinubukan niya. Actually, inopen niya for the first time, may military schooling sa China, no? Military schooling sa China. So para ma-co-op, matanggal yung ano over ano ba dependence sa US. Kinat niya yung ano, 'di ba? Yung EDCA, hininto niya, binadmouth niya yung US. Ang dami niyang ways kung paano niya impluwensyahan yung AFP. But still nakalagay sa ano sa ugat ando doon na masyado nang malalim ugat na hindi niya na-approve. Kaya in the end, yung relationship na yon ando doon kahit na wala sa national policy level, pero yung person-to-person relationship, ando doon. The US military leaders were directly connecting with the Philippine military leaders. Binabypass na yung usual channels like DFA and the national government diretso. Kaya kung mag-push siya, no, tipong mag-revgov siya, baka mapapasukan sila nung person-to-person relationship na yon to pull them to
Right.
the side of democracy.
And, and,
So
and
those
let's
are
not forget,
the
of course, this is the time of Trump we're talking about mostly, di ba? I mean, naabutan lang niya
yeah,
kay
yeah.
Obama sa dulo. And I think deep inside, Duterte knew Trump is someone you don't mess around with. I mean, I don't think Trump
Yeah.
could afford to lose a treaty ally to China in
Mhm.
the midst of everything. Siguro, I mean, we both know stuff, but we'll just say it off the
Yeah.
record na lang. But you know, I have my own information also na it's not like yung mga Americans ay nakaupo lang, di ba? And in fact, we
Yeah.
interviewed some of them, some very top officials dun sa ibang shows ko and all. So that's why I asked about the US element. So I understand that it looks like we share also similar reading on this issue.
Yeah.
Again, civil military relations, very important. People always forget a democracy's survival is hinged on a healthy, robust civil military relations, or at least the military not being fully co-opted. So yun ang feeling ko mahina yun ang kahinaan ng usual analysis ng Philippine politics and democracy during Digong. Now, balik tayo dun sa eto na. Because ito na, papunta na tayo sa Bardagulan part, the whole fentanyl and all of that. Before asking you whether you agree with BBM and all, the other thing I also keep in mind, Senator Trillanes, is, you know, if you look at a lot of successful populists, whether it's Modi, Erdogan, I can go on and on, most of them came to power in their 50s or
Mhm.
60s. Duterte came
Yeah.
in pretty late in his life. So do you think there was also the aspect of he was not at his best version, to put it nicely, di ba? Mamaya na natin pag-usapan yung mga accusations ng iba. Do you think there was also that aspect? Kasi I think kailangan na medyo bata-bata ka pa para, you know, you push for very high risk kind of moves. Like Marcos Sr. Marcos Sr. was doing this in his 40s and 50s, right? Modi, the same thing. I mean, I'm thinking of all of these successful strongmen or full dictators in the case of Marcos Sr.
Mhm.
Do you think that was also possibly an aspect? I mean, I'm talking about the human aspect also of this, diba?
Pwede, but I think it wouldn't have mattered kung talagang ano, yun nga, kung competent siya, no? Tsaka kung matibay yung dibdib din niya. Kasi ano siya nagba-bluff siya nakikita mo Magaling siya mag-bluff pero pagka kinol yung bluff niya, nag-back down siya hindi niya alam yung ginagawa niya. So may mga gano'n na paradox nga si Duterte. Ang nakita ko yung sa age kasi, even nung time na yun sinasabi na, oh may sakit na raw, gano'n. Based sa information namin from the inside nung security group niya, talagang wala, he was never at risk na
Yun
may
pinangalam ko eh. Because
yun. So
nag-stem cell yata
mm,
siya eh. Alam ko parang nag-stem cell siya
no.
eh. Yung time na medyo umiiba yung kulay niya, alam ko
Mm,
regeneration after stem cell siguro yan or something. So wishful thinking.
yeah.
I think there was a lot of wishful
Yeah.
thinking. Um,
So ano siya, ginagamit niya yung card na yon when it's convenient for him. Pero pag
yung
by and
paawa,
large,
you mean
still
paawa effect? Paawa siya.
paawa. Oh,
Namatanda na ako, ganyan na ako, yung gano'n.
yeah. Ginagamit niya yun when it's convenient for him. Pero generally, hindi siya naging factor kasi yung presentation niya nun, 'di ba? Palaging mimurahin niya. When he tries to intimidate people, hindi nakikita yung age niya 'di ba? But yes, it could have been a factor, siguro mas decisive siya kung
Yeah, I'm
kailangan
just
pa niya
saying,
kung may oras
kasi
pa siya.
the reason
Mm.
I'm saying is because may mga nakausap ako from Davao na not necessarily his
Yeah.
fans. And they were saying, actually, kung na-meet mo si Digong nung 40-year-old, 50-year-old pa siya, yung makulit-makulit pa siya, sabi na, alam mo, ang daldal yan. At saka, matalino. I mean, kahit ayoko sa kanya, I'm hearing from these people na hindi fan ni Digong. So a part of me was thinking maybe it's also because he was not at his sharpest, if I can put it nicely. But this is, I think, a perfect transition to what's happening now. Kasi,
Mhm.
grabe yan. I mean, it's not like surprise, surprise, Digong attacking BBM. He was doing that from the very day na alam niya BBM is gunning for the Malacanang. In fact, 2021 pa lang may article na ako na the House of Duterte is, shadowing the House. So, we've been seeing this happening na dalawang
Mm.
ano, diba? I mean, it's like a zoo without fences, right? Like if you put a tiger and lion, it's just inevitable. In this case, agila at tigre, di ba? Are you surprised by how crazy things are, even by what we would have expected, di ba? I mean, to openly go there, the son saying mag-resign na si Digong, the father coming out and saying drug addict tong presidente, calling on the military to, I don't know, join some secession, whatever. And this is very important because General Anyo, Secretary Anyo, Secretary Galvez, all of them very strongly came against this Mindanao secession, which goes back to what we were discussing a while ago, is professionalism of these men in uniform, or ex-men in uniform in that matter. What is your read of that? Isn't this even too crazy by, I don't know, Digong standards, or you're saying, well, it is really what we should have expected?
Well, based on our monitoring, itong latest outburst ni Digong noong January was actually the fourth time, fourth attempt niya na to oust Marcos, no? There was this January thing,
Yung
yung mass
reshuffle,
resignation sa DND,
yeah,
oo, yan.
reshuffles.
Then yung May, yung tambaluslos issue, yan, impeachment. Tapos yan yung noong October, yung calling on the AFP to audit yung Congress, tapos itong polvoron. Itong polvoron, I believe, na-overestimate ni Digong yung ano niya eh. Sila na ngayon yung naging victims ng echo chamber effect eh.
He drank his
Ah,
own Kool-Aid. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh. So dun sa social media group nila, so talagang napakainit nila. And we were monitoring it. Sabi ko masyadong ano na to, highly charged na yung kanila, pero sa labas everything was normal. The mainstream walang ano. So akala nila puputok na 'yon, no? They were yun, yung nakuha nila itong isang general na retired, tapos itong si Captain Enrique na nagmamanifesto kung ano-ano. Akala nila talagang ito na,
Can,
puputok.
can I resume, like,
Yeah.
can ex-official withdraw their support? I mean, ex ka,
Yeah.
anong ambag ng withdrawal?
Oo.
I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
funny, but I want to ask you.
Yeah. But ako naman, ayokong i-underestimate yun kasi nakikita ko yung mga chat groups na yun, yung mga military, yung nagkaroon sila ng initial manifesto, marami yun eh, 100 plus, ano? Nakakaano yun eh, nakaka-influence yun dun sa active eh. Ang problema nun was yung Pulveron video was all a lie. Yun ang problema nila. And they were assuming there was one, ano talaga yon, magkakaroon ng instability yon. People will start questioning, magki-creep in yun eh sa ranks. Pero hindi, it was a lie, just like the sex video of Senator De Lima, ginawa lang ni Duterte, sinabi lang niya, but the difference was when he was president, yung bully pulpit niya talagang can reach the far corners of the country, and it was repeated so often na walang pushback na yung mga nakarating nung balita na yun, nakahagip ng balita na yun.
Yeah, parang classic Gables na if you repeat a lie over and over again, oops, if you repeat a lie over and over again for 1,000 times, it's gonna look like a truth. Mukhang na-disconnect tayo ni Senator Trillanes sa 1 second lang, guys. Mukhang, baka may nagalit kay Senator Trillanes, 1 second.